I love a good dramatic mystery, especially if it's a non-English show. Netflix has released The Snow Girl. It's a Spanish series about some very dark themes. But should you check it out? In 2010, the most magical moment of the year turns into a nightmare for the Martín family when their daughter Amaya disappears in the crowd at a packed parade. Miren, a trainee journalist, begins an investigation parallel to that of the police that will awaken aspects of her past that she would like to forget. This 6-episode series is based on a novel by Javier Castillo. Now, I haven't read his work, but now I am intrigued to check it out. Now, as I said in the synopsis, the story revolves around a missing young girl, her family's never-ending search, and then an investigative journalist with her own dark past. Amaya is the young girl who disappears during a massive parade in Malaga, Spain. Now, obviously, the family's devastated and never gives up hope. And over the course of the story and years, we watch, just to a small degree, the effect that this has on the parents. But the majority of the story, it focuses on the perspectives of Miren, the reporter who becomes obsessed with solving the disappearance. Now, the show as a whole has a sort of a pacing issue. I mean, it doesn't drag necessarily, but portions begin to feel repetitive and seemingly going nowhere, especially when it comes to showcasing Miren's state of mind with her flashbacks from a very traumatic event in her past. Now, I do like how this creates her motivations for wanting to solve the disappearance. It's a disturbing way to tie the characters together, even though much of what we see doesn't really seem to connect. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they are connected. It's just Miren's experience was traumatic, and that then compels her to want to help someone else in a traumatic situation. The story bounces back and forth in the timeline, showing events in the days and even weeks following the disappearance, and then it also catapults us forward in time to show us events that are closer to the present. Now, these are very easy to follow as there are on-screen graphics to not only tell us the time period, but also where in the timeline relative we are to the disappearance. The acting is convincing, especially from the parents who just have to appear devastated the majority of the time. And they do a great job at conveying their hurt and loss, while also then trying to show some semblance of being able to function in the absence of their daughter. And while you may think this show would focus a lot on the parents, they're not in this as much, just at key moments to emotionally react to information. It's touching and sad, with the main purpose to highlight their steadfast optimism about finding their daughter. We also get to see a portion of the story that focuses on the two detectives who are working the case. And I like what we get from them, but there's more that's hinted at through small lines of dialogue that aren't fully explored, especially when it comes to their interactions with Miren, the reporter. Now, a lot of the time, the detectives just come across as flustered, not necessarily incompetent, but frustrated at their lack of movement in the case. And there's a lot of brooding that we see from them, and I never felt much of a connection to the detectives. I mean, either positive or negative. They're just kind of there in the story. Portions of their narrative, though, felt almost like they were cut because we'll hear bits and pieces about their lives, but are never shown anything. And not that I'm really looking to go into their personal lives, especially if it doesn't drive the story along, but we hear bits about their lives outside the police station, but we never see any of it. So it just felt a little odd in the long run. Now, from the journalist side, the story majorly focuses on Miren, but we also have the inclusion of her mentor, a senior journalist. Now, I don't know if it was just my mind working overtime through the mystery, or if there were actions or behaviors from the character, but he kept creating doubt in my mind. And I love that for the story angle. It's a complication that makes the mystery more intriguing, especially where Miren is concerned. Now, she has such a horrific storyline, so to have a character that could be good or could be devious, that uncertainty really helps to increase the tension of the story. And then for Miren herself, the actress Milena Smith, who portrays her, she does an excellent job at creating a character who looks haunted and tormented by her past. The emotional weight of her experience, it's physically visible in her expressions, her body language, even posture. There are some times that the camera will focus in on Miren, putting her right into the center of the frame. And it's in these moments that we're really just peering right into her torment. Her memories, they're so raw and visceral, which then translates right through the screen to us. Now, I was drawn in, and while I wasn't always a fan of the character, I had a ton of sympathy for her and those injustices that she'd experienced. Each of the episodes is about 45-ish minutes, and I've already mentioned how the pacing was a little off. I do think with so many flashbacks that don't really resolve, there's an opportunity to shave this down and tell a faster story. Now, the flashbacks are important, especially so we can understand Miren's point of view, but because they're also very repetitious, they end up adding more time than is necessary to really tell the story. Now, I'm sort of torn on how I feel about the show. On one hand, I really enjoyed the mystery, but it also takes quite a while to tell. And then it focuses less on Amaya, the missing girl, than it does on Miren, which is a little bit odd. But that being said, there's an opportunity for the show to continue with Miren, which then I'm all for, especially if it involves her obsessive determination to solve a case. Now, it's a different type of detective story, but I'd be game to see more of her character. And one thing I really appreciate in this series, especially given how the future of series is very uncertain, this case fully resolves. So there is a conclusion to the disappearance of Amaya. I mean, you can watch this, and if the show is canceled after one season, we're not left hanging for the story. But if Netflix does renew it, the story has left a door open to continue to follow Miren, and then hopefully to get even more about her own messed up history. So overall, The Snow Girl is a very captivating mystery, with very dark themes that examine trauma and loss through the lens of the affected. The acting is convincing, and there are moments that are designed to shock and surprise us, which the show succeeded at doing. There's some amazing camera work, especially when the focus locks onto a character to showcase the depth of their emotions. And while the pacing could use some work, trimming down repetitive scenes, all in all, the narrative is captivating and suspenseful, leading to an exciting conclusion. There's no sex or nudity, there is a lot of profanity and a ton of violence, including many scenes of sexual assault. I give The Snow Girl 3.5 out of 5 couches. I really do hope this show continues and we get to see more with Miren because, this season, while it's not phenomenal, I'm very engaged in where it can lead. So what are some good mysteries that you've seen recently? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.